Today we're going to be installing a front crank seal on a 5.9 Cummins in a second gen truck. Now, if you've got a 5.9 or a 6.7 truck ISB Cummins, more than likely you've probably got an issue with your front crank seal leaking. Today we're going to go over the procedure on how to change them for the 5.9 engine. It's going to be pretty much the same for the 6.7. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the fine points about the job. A couple of things that I see a lot on the internet, just misconceptions about when to use Loctite, when not to use Loctite. So I'll try to give you a full scope of the job. This will be a little bit longer video. To start out with, you can see that we have taken the radiator out of this truck. That does not need to be done to replace the front crank seal. We have a link to a video that we're going to put inside of this video that will get you back to our radiator installation, our Mishimoto radiator installation that we were doing when we found this problem. So we'll link you to that in this video. This job again can be done without taking the radiator out, but we're going to start it at taking the radiator fan out for our installation. So let's go ahead and begin. So the first thing that you're going to want to do in this, and this is going to be another point of contention here, is you're going to want to remove your fan and then the fan shroud and bring it out as one assembly. Now, I removed the fan from the drive. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will take the entire drive assembly off of here. They will loosen up these 4 bolts on the drive assembly and bring the drive assembly, the fan, and the fan shroud all out in one piece. That'll work completely fine. If you have a problem getting your fan off, then that's going to work just fine for you. I like to take the fan off the truck because it lets me check the status of my fan drive, make sure that it's still good and tight. And also it just needs to be done because eventually you're going to have to replace this drive assembly on the non-electric ones and on the electric ones too. So we'll show you how to do it. Neat little tool that we've got here is just a fan tool. It works on an air hammer. I think you can pick those up just about anywhere, 36 millimeter. The ISB 5.9 is left-hand threaded, so it's not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's righty-loosey. All right, so clockwise, standing in the front of the truck is going to loosen this fan. We're going to hit it with the air hammer real quick. Hope we got it right there. Usually doesn't take much from the air hammer, we sure did. So, I'm going to go ahead and spin the fan off here. And again, I've already got the fan shroud unhooked from the radiator because the radiator is out of the truck. On the bottom of this radiator shroud, there's a wiring clip. Make sure that you get down there and unhook the wiring clip that runs along the bottom of the shroud. All right, so we've got our fan out. So at this point, I've got room to be able to bring it out by itself, and I'm going to. If you have the radiator in, you will bring the fan and the shroud out all in one assembly. So here's my fan out. Now we're ready to bring the shroud out, which again, if the radiator's in, bring it out in one assembly with the fan. And we'll get that cleaned up before we put it in. Now, you can see just how bad my crank seal was leaking here. So it's gonna be just a real nice and messy job. 10 metric socket is all you need here. Everything's 10 metric in here to get everything off of the drive except for the Harmonic Balancer, which we'll talk about when we get to that part. Okay, we've got our fan and we've got our shroud out, so now we're going to go ahead and take our accessory drive belt off. So 3/8 inch ratchet down here on the tensioner, on the 5.9s here, just lift the belt off. Tensioner will come to rest. Remove your ratchet. Now I've got to take the belt all the way off on this one, unfortunately, because we're taking the front cover off. Good time to check the status of your belt. If your belt's got cracks in it and showing a lot of wear, go ahead and replace that because you don't want to be on the side of the road with a fan belt broken. The PCV canister off here. So first thing you got to do is you got to take the hose off of it, or I like to anyway. So move your clamp up with the clamp pliers. Go ahead and pull the hose off. This canister is actually a filter as well. So inside of this job, if you want to, you can go ahead and replace it. You can see where mine's broken and it's had a lot of leaking, so I'm gonna replace it in here too. So this is right hand threaded, so left to loosen it, take it out of the cover. You can see inside of that canister, it picks up the crankcase gases from the motor. There's a lot of oil in here. You may have something going on with your motor, you might want to address that, but outside of that, you can replace this as well, because again, it's a crankcase filter, so it is a wearable item. All right. From this stand, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take off the fan drive. 10 metrics on this. There is a 10 metric that is behind the drive assembly itself here, and it's kind of hidden. You can get to it with a 10 metric wrench, but we're going to go ahead and pop out the other three 10 metrics that are holding the drive on, and we'll do the other one last. We'll leave the top one for it to hang on. I'm going to loosen the top one and just leave it in for it to hang on. $10 metric. Now with this hidden bolt, be real careful with this. I'm gonna do a no-no here. I'm gonna use the open end of this wrench, and I'm just gonna see if I can get it going, because my other two bolts that I worked with there, they weren't overly tight, and I know nobody's been this far in this motor before. So I'm gonna go ahead with my open end of the wrench, and I'm gonna loosen that bolt up. Be careful not to round this here. Don't put too much on it and round it off, because then you got yourself a mess. And of course, with mine, it acts like it wants to not give up the ghost here. Here it comes. All right, I don't trust it with that open end. I can tell which way it's already going to go. So my box end of this wrench won't go in here. You can see that. I've got a little cheap 10 metric over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of grind it down and thin it out just a little bit, and that'll let me get in there with the close end of this wrench and get this off. All right, like I was saying there, had an old cheap 10 metric in my box there. Took it out, put it on the bench grinder, and just took a little bit off of it there. And that gave us plenty enough room to get in and get to that bolt. So now we got her moving like so. Now with that leaves us enough to where we can run the bolt out with the open end. So what we'll do now, we'll run that bolt out, and we'll go ahead and take this whole fan drive off. Adam just made a point to me, and he said, "Wait, you're not going to be able to get that bolt out because it's going to hit the pulley." Well, that's what sometimes I neglect to tell you guys this. So when you loosen up your top bolt as well, the whole assembly moves forward, and then that gives you the room to work the bolt out as you go. So you keep working the two bolts, and you'll be able to get the entire accessory drive off of there, or the entire fan drive off there, in one shot. So just make sure you work both of your bolts, and when you get to the pulley side and you feel like you've run out of room, you have not run out of room yet. You've still got plenty of room. Just keep pulling the pulley with it as you go, and you'll always have the same amount of room to work your wrench there, like that. then the bolt can stay in there and everybody's happy. All right, now we're going to remove the harmonic balancer. There's 4 15 metric bolts that hold the harmonic balancer on. I like to use a 1/2 inch ratchet in a long bar and just wrap it with my hand to loosen them up. If you've got a standard shift truck, you can take it out of gear, and that way the truck won't roll automatic. It doesn't matter anyway. So what I'll do is I'll just hit them with my hand like that, the bolts, and take the bolt out. So like I said, there's 4 of them holding the harmonic balancer in here, and we'll get those off. There's no TDC orientation on the harmonic balancer here because your TDC is marked on your pump gear. So there's nothing to be, you don't have to worry about that. I've already got a couple of those out, so I'm gonna get this last one out here. Come on, bolt. All right. Now to get the harmonic balancer off, you just simply kind of get behind it and start wiggling. It is on the crankshaft. It presses up about 1/8 of an inch onto the crankshaft, so do not pry on it. Just keep working with it. Rubber mallet. Usually will jar it loose for you. If your radiator is in here, watch what you're doing. So give him a couple wraps with the rubber mallet. Budge that real easy. With a very small prize bar, being very, very careful. In fact, I'm over here on one of the bolt heads and I know will not bend, so I got that just a little bit there. I'm gonna put a bolt back in it and turn it. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do that. And we'll go over here to this side because there's a bolt head right there that I can rest a prize bar against and it won't hurt the cover. And we will try there. And I'll come back to the other side. Back on my bolt head where I know I'm safe. Prize just a little bit there. I'm just going to keep working back and forth in those 2 spots. Again, where I know that I'm safe to do so. So, like we were saying, on these balancers for the 24 valve, there's not really a top dead center mark on this. Again, the top dead center mark is on the injection pump cam, but this is a really good time. A known failure on these trucks is the rubber piece on the harmonic balancer. This one, as bad as this sounds, really looks good. The center section of the balancer is in good shape, The rubber piece, the integrity of it looks good. I say go back with that. Yeah, nothing there that's gonna hurt us to reinstall that in the truck. I think that is a good balancer, so we're gonna go with that. All right, so now it's time to go after the front cover. You notice that the front cover's got a couple of studs on it. They'll need to go back in those positions. I don't know what was on this bottom cover here, if it was a holder for the tube. I can't remember what goes there, but it has since been removed. But if it's on your vehicle, something people don't do a lot today, everybody's got a cell phone. If you're worried about not knowing where those studded bolts go back, take a picture of it with your phone and put it in your pocket. A lot of people don't do that. I'm a big proponent of it because I don't have a very good memory. So now we're going to go ahead with removing the front cover bolts. Actually, as soon as I get my handy dandy examining gloves on here. And there's several in this cover, so again, be a good time for me to head on out to the Snap-on truck, grab a new 3/8 ratchet. Sorry, honey. All right, so we've got all the bolts out of the front cover. Just a word about that. There's two different types of bolts that are in the front cover. Well, three if you count the studded ones, but there's two different bolts major. There's 20 bolts in total. There's some short bolts like these. There's some long bolts like these. The short bolts, if you're freaking out, yeah, I'll never remember where they go. It's really easy. If you can see threads from where you're standing, that one's going to take a short bolt. Of course, I dropped it. And if you can't see threads, it's going to take a long bolt. Real easy. If you go to put the long ones in here and they start engaging threads as soon as you touch it, that's not where the long bolt goes. And if you put a short one in there and it doesn't touch any threads, you know that's not where that goes. So front cover, we're just going to go ahead and just prise on it by hand, and it should fall right off like that. Looks like we had a leak there at the front cover, and it looks like there was a couple of different places that maybe didn't get hit with Permatex there. Huh, it's odd. Looks like someone has been here before and they didn't Permatex the cover, they Permatex the case. Wrong. All right. Oh, there's that. So we've got a long road ahead of us getting cleaned up here. All right, so here's our gear train. We're going to get this gear case cleaned up as best we can here. I noticed that a lot of the other guys on some of the will tell you to pressure wash this. You can pressure wash it, that's fine. I'm actually going to probably put my cover back up here, hit a couple of spots with brake clean that I know that I want them to be clear, but as far as pressure washing goes, it's just not my thing. So I'm going to lay my cover back on. I'm going to hit a couple places with brake clean, like right here, up here, because I want to check and make sure that this is going to be clean. So looking for leaks there. And then we'll clean up our gear case and show you how to install the front crank seal. All right, well, I just wanted to show you guys the front gear cover cleaned up here. We've got all the Permatex off of this and got it cleaned up and ready to go. When you're cleaning on the gear cover, this is aluminum, so you want to make sure that you use, if you're using a whiz wheel, make sure you use the fine grade of wheel on the whiz wheel so you don't remove any material from this. Don't go hitting this with sandpaper, gouging it. You gouge it, you remove material, you're going to have a leak that you'll have to take this gear cover off, and to get the gear cover off, it's a lot more of an involved process. I'm going to be installing a wear sleeve on this crank, and I'll talk more about that on the workbench, but I wanted to show you the crank and what we do here. We just use a Scotch-Brite pad to clean the crank up, make sure that you go all the way around it. with Scotch-Brite pad, and by Scotch-Brite, I'm not talking about an emery cloth, I'm talking about a plain old Scotch-Brite pad like you would use to work on your dishes, clean your dishes, something that's not going to remove material from the crank, because obviously we don't want to do that. You want to get it good and cleaned up here, hit it with a little bit of brake clean, and then it's ready for our wear sleeve, which we'll show you the installation of that when we come back. We'll talk more about a wear sleeve. So that's got everything cleaned up. Let's slide over here to the workbench and we'll show you how to put in the front crank seal. We're going to show you how to properly install a front crank seal for your 5.9 now. I'm going to use a wear sleeve seal, and by wear sleeve seal you have a piece of metal that actually goes on the snout of the crank, and your seal will ride on that. Now, one point to this, if you use a crank seal or a wear sleeve setup, the seal is a different part number, so please remember that when you're ordering with that. 90% of you probably don't need to use a wear sleeve kit. I like a wear sleeve kit because I plan on driving the truck until I can't drive it anymore. I'm going to put a ton of miles on this thing. I'm going to use a wear sleeve because I'm being proactive. Most of the time wear sleeves are put on to damaged cranks or cranks that have high mileage that you just can't get the lip seal to seal on. Then you use a wear sleeve. I'm being a little bit proactive again. I'm going to go ahead and put a wear sleeve on it now because I want to get a ton of mileage out of it. I want to protect the integrity of the crank as much as I can. So with that being said, that explains why I'm using a wear sleeve seal setup. All right, so we're going to install the front cover seal. I noticed that there are a lot of questions about this. I field a lot of questions about this. We've put a bazillion of these in. We've done it 1,000 different ways too, but I'm going to show you the way that Cummins calls for it to be put in, the correct installation method all the way down to the sealant. So let's go ahead and start that. First thing you do, you want to knock your old crank seal out. All right, so your crank seal, this is the front of the cover. We're going to be knocking it out towards the bottom because it installs from the back side. So I'm just going to use a punch here, get it started like that, knock it out the bottom, and then you've got your out. So I've cleaned up my cover here too. It's already ready for installation, so I'm going to take a rag and I'm going to wipe this down, make sure that I get this really, really good and clean. Hit this lightly with a Scotch-Brite pad to make sure that I've got all the particles out of it that need to be out and gone before we install our new crank seal. Now you want to make sure that you install the seal dry. And dry, I mean free of lubrication. Okay, so we've got that cleaned up. We're ready to install our seal now. That looks good. All right, going to talk a couple of things about the seal, how the seal works. So with our wear sleeve, it's already in the plastic sleeve here that is for installation purposes. When you buy the wear sleeve kit from us, that with the front crank seal, it does not come with a depth tool. I'm going to show you how to set the depth on these today. If you didn't buy it with a wear sleeve, don't worry. The depth tool comes with that. The depth tool, which is the metal ring that's in that kit that you're looking at right now, what you do with it is you sit it in the front cover. It goes on the front side of the cover, and then you insert your seal from the back of the cover and take it to that depth, and then that's it. That's as far as it goes. So today we're going to use a tool that has already got the depth made into it. Now, a few words about the seal as well. The dust seal is the yellow on the genuine Cummins, so the dust seal is out. The open side of the seal, or our recessed side here, that always goes towards the oil, and the lip seal that's inside of it is black at the time of this filming or whatnot. So if any changes from that are made, you may see something different. But the open side of the seal always points toward the oil, or if you're dealing with a seal that's got a spring in it, it always goes towards the oil. Now, the installation tool that we're going to use, we're going to offer these on the website. This sets it at the correct depth. When you put it into the rear cover, it's only going to go to that depth and that's it. This is the depth on the lip of this right here. This is about 270 thou. So, you know, a little over a quarter of an inch depth on the crank seal. Depth isn't as big of a problem with this, or as much a critical factor as getting the seal even in the cover is. Now, you guys that have done this before and you've done it by hand, and you know what I'm talking about here. If the seal is inside of the cover and it's at an angle, kind of like I'm holding it right there, it's going to have more pressure on one side of the seal. The seal is going to wear out faster and you're going to have a leak quicker. If you use an installation tool of some sort, and again, we will offer these on the website, these tools are going to be invaluable. If you're going to keep buying Cummins motors, or you're going to try to keep your truck for a long time, I would suggest buying this so you can get this seal in here correctly. So let's go ahead and install our seal. Now, the way this tool works, the plastic installation guide there actually fits inside of this, and it goes down just like that. Now, oh, I almost forgot the sealant. These Cummins calls for sealant to be put on the crank seal. Now, by sealant, they're not talking about Loctite, or I'm sorry, thread locker. They're talking about a thread sealant like a Loctite 545 brand. This 545 Loctite, this is a thread sealer. This has got high lubricity. It's a hydraulic sealant for fittings, and what it's doing for this crank seal is it is keeping, you know, oil from being able to come from around the cover, around the seal. Usually don't have that problem. I wanted to make sure that I showed you the correct way to do this. This 545 Loctite, this stuff is expensive. You can find it in a smaller bottle. Please do so, and you'll see what I mean when you go to get it. So, again, this is not a thread locker. This is a thread sealant that Cummins advises you to use. Not much is needed here, just a little bit, little dab will do you. I go all the way around the circumference of the seal itself. Now that seal is ready to go inside the bore, so I will insert it into my tool just like so. Then they're going to go, both of them are going to go into the cover like so. Once I know I've got that about where I want it, I'm going to close up my jig here. I will hit around the seal installer until we hit firm, which is what we've done now. All right, now we can remove the installer, and our crank seal is in, and it's in correctly. It's at the correct depth. We've got our sealer on there, so we won't have to worry about any oil leaking around it. And there you go. Didn't disturb the guide tool that's on that. You can kind of see on the seal where it's at in the cover. Now, a lot of people, they tell you never to remove the plastic insert on that. That's right, you don't, but if something happens and it falls out, it's not the end of the world. You can get it back on the seal. Just pay attention to the direction that the dust seal and the inner seal is going to make sure that they're sealing. So there you go. There's the correct way to put the crank seal in the cover of a 5.9. Pretty much the same process for 6.7. All right, so now we're ready to go back over to the engine and install our wear sleeve. All right, so now we're ready to install our wear sleeve down onto our crank here, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the finer points of that. To do this correctly, you need a wear sleeve installation tool, which we will have available on the website. This sets the depth of the wear sleeve itself just a little bit farther back on the nose of the crank than flush with the end of it. So this is a nice tool to have. Also, there's a lot of confusion about whether you use Loctite on the crank for the wear sleeve. You do not. It is not called for. I know that it's been used by a lot of guys over the years and it works just fine, but you don't Loctite this on because this is a wearable item. Eventually you'll have to remove this. When you go to remove it, you want to be able to remove it the correct way without having to mar up the crank. So that being said, let's go ahead with our installation. First thing you want to do, make sure your crank is clean. We showed you how to do that. Move my hand here for Adam, and just gives a little squirt of oil here on the nose of the crank. That's going to give us just enough lubrication for our installation that we need here. All right. Now it's time to install the wear sleeve. The wear sleeve, you want it installed with the chamfered side of the wear sleeve towards the engine, and that's kind of hard to see in that shot right there, Adam, but you want it down. Okay. The angled end of it will go towards the motor, so I want to actually sit it in my tool that way, and then I'll go ahead and put my bolts through the tool, which is just easier to do it like this. Oh, yeah, set my wear sleeve inside of my tool there, sorry, with a chamfered side that's going towards the motor. All right, and then I'll go ahead and start my bolts on the tool. Now again, if you're watching this, a lot of you don't need to put a wear sleeve on like I'm doing. This is just something I prefer for my personal truck. So if you bought a front seal from us and it did not come with a wear sleeve kit in it, don't fret unless you've got a damaged crank. You're not going to need it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking the wear sleeve up. You're just going to want to alternate between the two bolts here, pushing the wear sleeve onto the crank till it gets started. And you're gonna kind of just take it. Your looser bolt is when you're working like this, your looser bolts, and I can see already that I've got it cockeyed. So I'm gonna take the pressure off of that. I'll work the wear sleeve around there. Now, dig the wrench back out. All right, now let's try it again. So again, be conscious of that. Watch what's going on. Don't force anything. Just be conscious of what you're doing. Alternating. Now I usually move my bolts till one of them gets looser than the other ones, and then I'll take the other one up. And you'll want to make sure that you put your wear sleeve on before that you Permatex your cover. If you Permatex your cover and then go working on your wear sleeve, your Permatex is going to start curing on you, and you're not going to have a good put as good a seal on it as you would have if you put it on fresh or uncured. And you can see that the wear sleeve just passed on the crank where my old seal rode. So I've got that, we'll have that sealed up. Does that shot look okay, Adam? Can you see, all right? Don't do this with air tools, please.
German torque effect.
Yeah, no torque there. Just take it till it bottoms out. You'll know once she's bottomed out. All right, so we know that we have gotten our wear sleeve where it needs to be because both of our bolts, we just ran them down till they just won't go anymore, and you'll know what you're looking for on that. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen it up, remove the tool. I'm trying to. Also, when the tool is up and the wear sleeve is all the way up, the snout of the crank will come through here, the dowel that the harmonic balancer goes on. You'll see it start to come through. So if you have a question on your depth, you can always look to that to make sure that that's made it through. And if you've got a question about whether if you tear your truck apart and you're wondering, hey, I wonder if somebody else has put a wear sleeve on my motor, you can look at the snout of the crank there and you can see the separation between the wear sleeve and the actual base of the crank there. That's how you know that it's got a wear sleeve on it. You can pretty well look at it and see the different layers of it, layers for lack of a better word. So, and you'll notice that the wear sleeve tool pushes that back just a little bit on the back side of the crank itself. So it's back, you know, what is that, 1/8 of an inch, Adam, on the crank. So our seal is now going to ride on that, and that's going to give us a little bit better seal. Also, if you've got a damaged crank, this is the snout of your crank's damaged or got a lot of miles on it, you're going to want to use a wear sleeve in that instance as well. So now we've got our wear sleeve on. We're going to move over and show you how to Permatex our cover and get it ready for installation. I forgot to turn my mic on the last shot, so you didn't get to see me putting all the Permatex on and my great artistic skills. But I want to talk to you about what Permatex we use around the shop here. And this is not a plug for Motorcraft parts, maybe just a little bit. Ford 7.3 Permatex. We use this stuff anytime that Permatex is called for around here on engines. If it can, it's just a cheap shot, it's Ford guys. If it can make a 7.3 quit leaking, you know it's good stuff. This is really good stuff. It's a little bit expensive, but it is definitely worth it. So I have Permatex the cover. We were talking about the indentions that are in the cover between the bolt holes, and that's where your Permatex goes. Make sure that you Permatex around the bolt holes as well. The indentions aren't there, but it doesn't mean you don't Permatex around that. You want to make sure that you get on the bottom side or oil side of the holes. On your crank seal, make sure that your plastic guide is in and you're ready to install it. So it will slip right over the crank snout and right over the wear sleeve, and it's going to help you guide pushing this thing on. All right, so let's go with our cover. Let Adam get into position here. All right.
I'm good.
I try to make sure that I've got everything as best I can here. So I'm going to slip the cover over the snout of the crank, the plastic, so I know I'm home right there. And move these wires back, and I'm going to go ahead and start pushing the cover up on and set it on home here. All right, now We've got it. Remember what I told you guys about your short bolts and your long bolts? If short bolts don't live there, you'll know it pretty quick because there will not be any threads. I like to hang a couple of long ones if I can. Remember where that one was. That was actually a short one right there. It goes there. That's where my wiring harness goes. Remember that, and I got a stud that goes down here. There's where that one goes. All right, now we'll just go around the cover. We'll be putting our bolts in, and once we get all of our bolts in, I'm gonna hunt for a hole that I know is gonna take a long one. There's one. So I'll do that. I'll go around the cover. I'm gonna put all my bolts in, start snugging everything down. So we've got our front cover up and we've got all 20 of our bolts tightened down. The torque spec on these are 18 foot-pounds, so make sure that you go through these. Do not over tighten them. Go through, snug everything down, check them on Torx if you want to. If not, you know, go through and get these, you know, snugged up and realize what the stripping point is, I guess. You'll see that we've already got the seal guide out, the plastic guide. I apologize for that. I went ahead and pulled it out, and I thought that Adam had the camera on, but he didn't. That was my fault. But make sure before you put your Harmonic Balancer on, you take the plastic sleeve out of there. So now you're really at put the Harmonic Balancer on, and I'll show you a quick tip on that before we go. So for your Harmonic Balancer, again, check your rubber and make sure that your rubber looks like it's in pretty good shape before you reinstall. This is it's not a hugely expensive part. My rubber looks good and everything looks on my alignment looks good, so I'm going to reuse this. But go ahead and put your Harmonic Balancer on. I don't like to use the bolts to pull the balancer up. Sit it on the snout of the crank, then get yourself a bolt, work around to a bolt hole. Put a couple of bolts in. Once you've at least got 2 in, then you know that you've got the correct alignment of your Harmonic Balancer. Harmonic Balancer, torque spec is 92 foot-pounds. Now we'll hang our fan drive, put our crankcase breather back on, and then put our fan belt back on, and that's got our front crank seal installed correctly. I know this video was a little bit longer, a lot of technical stuff in here for a job that's very, very simple, but there's a lot of things that we saw out there and that I've read and people have asked me that I knew that were just wrong, and I wanted to show you know, how Cummins wants this done. So, and remember, this video is in connection with our radiator, our Mishimoto radiator installation that we're doing. So click back on the link that Jim's going to put in this video to get you back to the radiator installation for the 2nd gen. So again, the front crank seal for 5.9s and 6.7 is pretty much the same. Going to be pretty much the same procedure with a couple little twists. So, if you have a question about this installation or any of our other installations, please give us a call. We'll be glad to help you out. Like and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click back to our Mishimoto radiator install that started this whole mess. If you got a question about anything, please give us a call. Thank you.